Hello everyone, welcome to the Business Services Café by ABSL, powered by BrandFizz. I'm István Lenk, your host for this recharging coffee break. We are here to bring thriving business services sector closer to your freshly brewed insights, espresso shots, and most influential leaders and sip of the advice for takeaway. In each episode, we sit down with top leaders from the business to explore energizing topics that shape the industry landscape. In today's episode, our guest is Fadi Shadeh, manager of the Hungarian Investment Promotion Agency. And the topic is the attractiveness of the business services sector. We are exploring the business services sector now with Fadi. So grab your first coffee and settle in and join us. We blend expert insights and inspiring conversation right here at the Business Services Café. Let's get started. So as a warm-up question, Fadi, how do you typically take your coffee?
Hello everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Just to quickly answer your question, it depends on the day, on the part of the day. So first, before noon I drink usually espresso, and then when I go home, there is a ritual with my wife that we drink a coffee together. That's more like a latte, and we discuss what happened all over the day. If we have a meeting at HIPA, I usually drink a cappuccino because we have an excellent barista who prepares the best cappuccino in town.
Wow, it's a great one. I'm pretty sure one point I would like to try that again. And can you please tell us a few topics about your coffee meetings you mentioned at HIPA? How does that look like, and what shall we know mostly about?
Yeah, so usually when we have a meeting with an investor, then the coffee is a really important factor in that, because as I've already said, we have an excellent barista who usually puts some kind of graphic design on the coffees, for example, the logo of the company who is visiting, which is a great icebreaker. And then we can start to discuss business topics with a much more relaxed environment. And during these visits, we usually start with introducing Hungary's business environment, investment environment, and all the relevant topics which the company wants to know. Usually in this sector, it consists of HR questions and office possibilities.
It's very interesting. So you mentioned that you have a great barista at the HIPA. So what are your barista level? So your barista level skills and experiences, what you need in your position?
Strictly regarding coffee, my barista level is that I can use an espresso machine. Since we have a barista, I don't have to know all of the skills. But speaking in a wider scope, so career-wise, looking a little bit back to my career path, which led me to HIPA. First, during my years after high school, I tried different kind of job environments. And I think this is crucial for success, to experience many job environments. So I worked, my first serious job was at a phone repair company. I used to repair Nokia phones in a big hall. Phones coming, rolling on my right, my laptop on the left. I ordered the parts and I repaired the phones. But later on, which is much more relevant, I worked as a summer job in a call center in a health line, which was quite stressful at that time, but a great experience. And then after university, after I finished my master's studies, I started at the Hungarian Public Administration Scholarship Program, MKÖ. I joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, first at the Department of Trainings. I worked there roughly 4 months. And later on, I was offered a full-time job at the Department for Export Promotion. So that's where my real career kicked off in terms of helping companies. At that time, I was helping Hungarian companies to get to external markets. And then 2.5 years ago, I joined HIPA. And my position became the reverse. I am helping mostly international companies to come to Hungary and establish their presence here.
Yeah, that's a great journey, and you had several stages throughout your career. And what was your experience and the skill exactly? What helped you the most to get to that stage where you are now at HIPA?
Well, many skills. First, I wanted to study. I wanted to understand the positions and I wanted to grow from every role. So I started from really basic level jobs. In 2012, I worked as a housekeeper on the Paralympic Games. So I really climbed the ladder. I was at the very bottom, and I think it's never shame to work and to experience. And in order to be a good leader, I think it is important to experience to be at a really bottom position, because that's how someone can really appreciate its position as he climbs up and up the ladder. But also I think networking is really important, because when I joined HIPA, I did not have a much wide understanding of the business services sector, and which really helped me get to understand all what is going on and who are the main players, is discussions with you, with ABSL, with Monica, with different actors of the sector. Of course, it required me to be very active and go to different kind of conferences and business breakfasts of ABSL and so on and so forth. But also I think that it's important that this sector is really a welcoming environment. It's a skill to network, but also it needs an environment to do so.
It's good to hear, because I remember when we first met, you were fresh and new in your position and the role. You were learning a lot about the business services sector, and now you are in a stage after a big and long learning curve. You really became an expert not only about the sector, but you can also provide this experience and the knowledge toward those investors who you deal with day by day. And now if we move towards that section where we talk a bit more about the professional areas of your job and of the activities what you do every day. Let me just start with a very short first question. Why Hungary?
First of all, Hungary has a really favorable taxation environment. So it is the government's aim, as we are a small and open economy, to help exporters and to help investors to come to Hungary, because these two sources of income are really important for the national economy. So in terms of investment promotion, we created a good taxation environment, which consists of two main elements, let's say. One is the corporate income tax, which is the lowest within the OECD. It's 9% flat rate tax. And the other one is the social contribution tax, which is paid by companies, by the employers, on top of the gross salary. It's a 13% tax. And if we examine the history of this tax type, then we see the logic of the government, that they want to tax consumption and not production, since this tax, which is paid by the employer, as I've already mentioned, has been more than halved since 2018, from 28.5% to the 13% rate which we have now. We also have a quite good talent pool, with mature business service centers being around from the beginning of the 90s in Budapest, but also we have newcomers, research and development centers. We have different kind of skill sets which a newcomer investor might need. We have 64 universities which provide fresh talent pipeline for investors. And also we have different markets. So for example, not just Budapest, even though the country is Budapest heavy. We have tier 2 cities which are emerging. Just to name a few, Pécs, Szeged, Miskolc, Debrecen, Veszprém, for example. And also you have HIPA, which is the official governmental gateway for investors. We help investors not only with providing them all the relevant information which they need. We connect them with universities, municipalities, local already existing and established centers. So we organize reference visits as well. We can show them office opportunities as well if they are interested. And also we provide different kind of state incentives. And also we are a gateway to the government. So if they have any challenges or questions which is not in our scope, but it's a task of another governmental organization, then we are happy to help them to connect, or we can act on their behalf as well.
Thank you. That's really a wide range of activities that you manage every day, and really great insights about how you approach investors and what you provide them as a potential next stage, just bringing them and keeping them in Hungary, which is great for all of us. And now it's about the next stage where we may think about and talk about the trend, about the growth and the growth potential of the business services industry in Europe, but mainly in Hungary, in the light of those incentives, contributions, and support that you overall provide to investors. So how do you see this growth potential in Hungary for the sector?
This is a quite new sector in Hungary. This sector started in the beginning of the 1990s, and is due to the fact that that was the time when the political and economic system changed, and it allowed international companies to come and settle down in the country. So it started in the 90s. Big companies arrived, like, for example, IBM established their presence in the beginning of the 90s. But there was another important push in 2004 with the accession of Hungary to the European Union. Many other companies, investors started to come in this sector, and their number increased drastically until 2008-2009, when there was a slight drop due to the global economic crisis, financial crisis. But later on, we have a gradual increase despite any setback which we had in global economy, like, for example, the COVID pandemic or the war in our neighbor, in Ukraine, and all its effects on the regional economies, energy prices and inflation, for example. And this proves the resilience of the sector. So even though we had several conflicts, global conflicts, regional conflicts, which affected local and global economies, the sector grows and continues to grow. And it's due to two main factors, I think. One is that if there is a global shock, then companies have to rationalize their expenditure. So they bring positions to Hungary because it's relatively cheaper than maintaining them in Western locations. And if the global economy is good, then they are expanding everywhere, so in Hungary as well.
And how do you see the conditions related to these factors that you mentioned? So how do you see those conditions that have an effect on the impact of this growth? So what are those conditions?
Well, the first and most important condition, I think, is the cost-to-value ratio, which is really good in Hungary. We can speak about different kind of factors, but at the end of the day, every business service center's main role is to optimize costs. And that's why Hungary is a good location in Central Eastern Europe. First, because the cost is good. Second, because of its location, we are a member of the European Union. It opens up all the talent market of the European Union. We see that lately 21% of the employees are from abroad, being from the European Union or from a third country. And also our location gives a good continuity between Eastern and Western operations. So time-wise, it's a good location as well. And also, as I've already mentioned, we can provide the same quality talents. We have a really mature environment and really mature centers. Now, just to give you a number, 60% of the business service centers established in Hungary are more than 10 years old, which gives them some kind of maturity level. Wherever you go, even in tier 2 locations, you can find the experienced talents.
That's a great point. And you mentioned it's pretty young. So the vast majority of the sector players are, let's say, young in terms of 10 years, comparing to other countries where they are there for a longer period of time, even though also in Hungary we started this sector 20 years ago, but the weight of the growth came in the past 10 years with and without war, COVID types of volatile economic environment. It is still growing, as you said. But how do you see the sector's role in the Hungarian national economy?
As we see the growing number of centers, I can say that it's more and more important, both in terms of existing centers and both in terms of the future of the centers. But to put it into context, if we see the number of employees being employed in the sector, in 2018, it was 50,000, roughly 50,000. Today, it's 110,000. If you compare it to the employees being employed last year, it's roughly 10% growth. So we see that it attracts talents, mainly young talents, because the average age is around 34, 35 years old. But all the job environment and the benefits and salary packages which these centers can offer, also international career opportunities, is really appealing to freshly graduates and to as other people already working in other sectors. But as we see, we are in an environment where the unemployment rate has significantly dropped. It's around 4.3% these days. So the focus is more and more shifting towards higher value end, as you like to call it, KIPS, knowledge intense business services. So it's not about attracting a big number of investors and establishing many new positions, because we have a good talent pool, but it's limited. But it's more like upscaling, developing people, and providing higher and higher value-added jobs.
And these people are very, very diverse. I mean, they are younger population. There is a set of expectations these people may have. Also, the employers have certain expectations. But how do you see that from a business services standpoint, this diversity? How does that look like from your angle, from a business services standpoint? How do they apply? Can they apply diversity and handle well? Is it something which is beneficial? Is it something what we need to develop and deep dive more? How do you see that?
In terms of diversity, I would highlight two things. The first, that gender equality, so the man-women ratio is roughly half-half, even in managerial positions, which I think is quite unique compared to other sectors. There is one thing which should be worked on more, I guess, is to create a more multi-generational work environment. Because I think that employees with the age of 40, 50s, they could add a really good value to this sector. But maybe due to being it's a really young sector, maybe they are a little bit afraid to enter in big numbers.
Yeah, go back a bit to what you mentioned about the HIPA role in this sector. Promotion as the name, and the activities what you do. You mentioned some, but what you do today? But how do you see what are the desired expectation, mid-term and long-term, from a HIPA perspective?
I think two main important desires. One is, as I've already mentioned, to upskill the population, to help companies to upskill the talent pool, their employees, and to attract more higher value added positions. And I think we are in a really good trajectory in that, since compared to last year, the number of research and development positions, for example, more than doubled. So it's a good sign. And on the other hand, it's a strategically important goal for us to strengthen the tier 2 cities, big university towns, because this sector can be a game changer for them. This can help them retain freshly graduated talents locally, and this can strengthen all the city's ecosystem.
Yeah, I know you do some specific events and initiatives to bring people back to Hungary and keep people and the knowledge and brains within the country. Can you elaborate on what are those initiatives?
Yes, one is, we call it career networking events. It's based on two elements. One is that we organize together with embassies. We organize local events, mainly for Hungarians studying in that area. So, for example, the Embassy of London is really active in this regard. So we organize events, let's say at the Embassy of London. We invite companies from Hungary who can travel to the embassy with a stand, and they can introduce themselves. They can introduce career opportunities which they can offer. Also, usually we invite an HR professional as well, who can more generally introduce the talent market and all the opportunities which Hungary can offer. And there is another element, which is an online career networking event. We organized the first such event last year, and that was a huge success. More than 3,000 people registered for that. We had more than 20 companies participating. Yeah, the aim is the same, to make these students aware of all the opportunities which Hungarian companies can offer for them. Also, we have another program for tier 2 cities. We want to help the cities as well to be able to better develop their opportunities. Basically, we organize it together, so ABSL is a good partner in that. And every year we focus on one city. So last year it was Szeged, this year it's Miskolc. And we examine and assess all the information which can be relevant for an investor. It's together with ABSL, with the local municipality, with the university. If there is any stakeholder which might be relevant, then they join us in the assessment. And later on, with an external partner, which is Knowledge Pyramid, We provide them with an assessment, with a study, and with propositions how to do better this kind of investment promotion activities. So this is twofold. One, we try to help locally these cities to develop, but we also try to widen our available talent pool by trying to attract back students who went to study abroad, which is more than 10,000. It's roughly 15,000 these days, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great insights about your activities again. And you do many things on many fields, on people, with people, for people, also investors, businesses, and not only for the business services sector, but many sectors and covering all of them. But going back to the business service sector, what is your expectation or idea? What's your view on the future? What will be the trend? I know it's a difficult question and different people may give a different answer for this, but how do you see, based on your opinion, what is the trend going forward in terms of the business services sector in Hungary?
Well, to put a long story short, I would say that I expect less newcomers year by year and more organic growth for existing centers. So we see this is the trend now. We have 2, 3, 4, 5 new entrants every year, but the majority of the growth within the employment comes from already existing companies. So I think this trend will continue. And also I can just repeat myself, I think that these tier 2 cities will be much more on the radar for the upcoming years.
Yes, thank you very much. That's a great final answer for this. Let's go on with the espresso shots. And this is really about short questions, short answers, what comes into your mind. And the first one is, what was your first job ever? I know you mentioned that, but you can just highlight that again.
Well, if I want to say the first ever job, then it was a project-based job, interpretation job while in high school. So that was the first one.
And what did you do after that to consciously drive your career going forward?
That's a tricky question because up until I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, I could say that I had the conscious decisions one by one. When I started my university studies at the BA level at Corvinus University, I joined the Association of Diplomacy in Practice, since it was my goal to be a diplomat and to serve Hungary abroad. I would say that it wasn't always conscious after that. It's more like I followed within every job the path which was the most interesting for me. And one path leads to another, and one door opened another door. And here I am at HIPA. If you would ask me 5 years ago if I believe that I would work here with business service centers, then I think I would have laughed.
Yeah. What is the biggest misconception about the sector?
For the actors in the sector, I think that the biggest misconception is that on the long term they can succeed alone. If they only focus on self-branding and on the company's branding. I think that's a big misconception. There are good examples, however. For example, one of my favorite initiatives within the sector is the BSC Roundtable in Debrecen, where companies realize this and they work together. They go to universities, they hold university lectures, they have different courses in several languages. And when they do these activities, they are not representing their company, they are representing the sector. And I think that actors within the sector should focus more on building the overall image of the sector. And let me give you an example. So a couple of times I go to universities, I hold this kind of lectures. I try to introduce this whole sector to the university students. And when I ask them if they know what is the business services sector, many of them just don't know. Usually within an auditorium of 100 people, only a couple of them knows, 5, 6 people. But when I start naming companies, then they realize that, oh, they know all the companies. But they do not connect that they have roles which are interconnected. They can build a career within this sector. They can go from one company to another and build a career outside of one company. So I think that's important to have a better sector marketing.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a quick snapshot about your experiences and highlights about the sector. And if we move towards the end, where we would like to summarize a bit what you think about the sector, what you would like to tell us, if something, only one thing we should bring with us, what it would be. So can you share your trend knowledge about the sector? Anything what the listeners can keep a closer eye, a summary, what you would like to call the attention to?
First and foremost, if someone wants to really understand all the trends within the sector, then we have a really good study available on HIPA's website, the Business Services Hungary study. The new fresh one will come out at the second half of November in 2024. This is based on a survey of the centers in Budapest and other tier 2 cities. And we conduct the survey together with ABSL and MCHEM. So this is a collaborative effort. So if someone wants to really understand the trends, they should go to HIPA's website and check out this study. If someone is listening who is a university student or who is considering career change, then I would highly advise to look deeper into possibilities, what these centers can offer, because they can provide really good career opportunities. And for the centers themselves, I would say that going to conferences, going to networking events, going to business breakfasts of ABSL, for example, and also joining different kind of collaborative initiatives is really beneficial on the long term, not only for the sector, but for themselves as well. So I would encourage everyone to join these collaborative efforts.
Thank you, Fadi. Thank you again. That was all for today and the episode of the Business Services Café. Big thanks to you, Fadi, for sharing such valuable insights. That's really a huge impact on the business service centers. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe and leave a review. Stay tuned, and more expert conversations will continue to lead, innovate, and transform the business services sector. Thanks for listening. See you next time.